Hello and welcome to Stories That Shape Us. My name is Joanna Daniel. I've been doing a series on abuse all of last week, and I'm just going to continue the conversation just a little bit, speaking specifically to the woman who experienced abuse. Last week, I talked and I was more educating on abuse for those who are in our community who have watched the podcast via YouTube or listen to the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You will understand. You understand because that's perhaps your experience. So most of the education was for, I was specifically wanting to speak to church leaders because sometimes in these communities abuse gets ignored, not validated, and women's lives, victims' lives are at risk, children's lives are at risk as a result. And so I feel the more we can educate people, the more tools we give churches to be more trauma informed and can make decisions about how to support victims of abuse, which is a worthy work. Today, I want to talk about forgiveness and what role does forgiveness play in it for the victim. How does she, the victim, and I keep saying she, and sometimes when my children are listening to my podcast or my children accompanies me as I go and speak, and one in particular will ask, why do I always say just her? Mom, don't men get abused too? And I said, yes, son, men do, but largely the women gets abused more than men according to the statistics. And I had to a couple of weeks ago sit with my youngest and kind of break it down for him and help him to understand why and what's happening and how to be a safe man and a safe person. He's only a child. He's not even a teenager yet. But I think the earlier we have the conversation, the earlier we can give people information to make decisions and to choose to protect vulnerable people and to be safe people ourselves. So what role does forgiveness play? Now I know that for the woman who experienced abuse, for the person who have experienced abuse, whatever kind of abuse it is, and I'm going to speak mostly to the woman who experienced abuse. Forgiveness is an ongoing daily thing. You forgive and you forgive and you forgive and you forgive today, and God gives you tomorrow, you're going to forgive tomorrow, and you forgave yesterday and last week and last year. Forgiveness is not the issue. And so for people who will tell to just forgive, and sometimes that can feel dismissive for somebody who lives in a situation where their nervous system is constantly dysregulated, they're constantly in stress and under stress because the perpetrator hasn't changed, but the victim is being asked to forgive and to forgive. I shared some statistics last week that I learned from Women's Aid that some women in refugees status sometimes spend a long time in an abusive relationship. Women from Black and minority ethnic communities in the UK spend up to 20 years before they'll report abuse. That's a long time. So forgiveness is an ongoing daily work, sometimes for decades. So when we are just hearing about the abuse and we are rushing somebody to forgiveness, believing that that is going to change the perpetrator, it doesn't change anyone. And sometimes we hear these really terrible stories of this person who stayed forever, 30 odd years in the abuse. She forgave, she prayed, she fasted, and that shifted, that changed him. And now they're happily married. I read that recently and I asked, are they really happily married? Does somebody who ignore your needs for 30 odd years suddenly now know how to love you, how to meet your needs, how to be a kind and safe person overnight because you prayed? It takes more work than that. It takes a lot of self-awareness to change. It takes a lot of self-awareness of knowing self and making conscious decisions to change, to know why I was unsafe, to know the things that I was doing that was putting the people that I love at risk, that was harming the people that I love. And it takes a while to begin to do that work of healing and change and awareness and to create the atmosphere to build and create trust. It doesn't happen overnight. If you're doing that work, I salute you. Keep doing that work. If you are listening to somebody who has disclosed abuse, you can't rush people to forgiveness. You can't rush them because, as I said, they'd be forgiven every single day. One of the things that will be really useful if you're supporting people and you think forgiveness might help is to speak to the perpetrator, hold the perpetrator accountable. So you're going to believe the story. You're going to speak to the perpetrator, not to confirm whether or not the story is true, but to hold them accountable. Now, that might be more challenging for many people because what they know to do is to say to just forgive. But now I'm challenging you, I'm asking you, I'm inviting you, encouraging you even to speak to the perpetrator and hold them accountable. Can you do that? Do you know how to do that? How to help somebody to be a safe person? How to help them to break out of a pattern of control that they've lived in for so long. For how do you get somebody to stop manipulating somebody else? How do you get them to change from insults and humiliation? How do you get them to stop manipulating the system and the children and you, so that the person who you're sending home to forgive can have a safe space to do it in, because she's not going to wake up tomorrow and the cycle is going to continue over and over again. So what role does forgiveness play? Forgiveness frees victims, but we have to consider the person who is forgiving every day but still living in the stress, because the forgiveness won't stop her stress from affecting her at a cellular level. Stress does that. The forgiveness won't stop stress from affecting her. Forgiveness won't stop her nervous system to be dysregulated on a daily basis, minutely basis, hourly basis. Forgiveness won't stop when she goes in our fight or flight response because he opens the door or because his face look a certain way at the dinner table. Forgiveness won't stop when she's isolated and when he controls her, because when he turns everybody against her. So forgiveness won't stop what goes on in our body physically when that happens. And so we have to be aware of what abuse is. It's a gradual breaking down of somebody, and I'm going to say at a cellular level. It's a gradual breaking down of someone. And so though we might be encouraging somebody to forgive, and forgiveness again frees the victim, but when somebody is living it day to day to day to day, forgiveness won't change the physical impact of living in that kind of stress. And so we have to be aware of the kind of stress that she's living in, and what other resources do we have that we can give to her that can help her live in a stressful situation. If you are a woman living in a stressful situation, you're not sure if this marriage is abuse or not, on the video that I did last week, Sunday, and I think again on Friday, I made the difference between a difficult marriage and an abusive marriage. If you're struggling to understand, is this abuse or not? Am I being isolated? Am I being manipulated and controlled? The insults that is happening day to day, is it abuse or is it just him and his character? Perhaps both, perhaps it's his character, but is it normal for you to live in a relationship where somebody continually insult and use threats and manipulation and control constantly? Now, there are many examples that we could give of what that might look like. It might be not being able to talk to friends. It might be not being free enough to just call your family or invite them over, or you go visit them. You might not be able to go out with your friends. You might not be able to, some women are pregnant constantly. You might not be able to work. You might not be able to have control of your own money. Even though you work, he might control your money and you're not able to control your money. The budgeting is not done together as a couple. He has ultimate control of your money, and you don't know how much he works, and you don't know where the money is. You don't know how the spending happens. You're constantly short and you have to ask for the things that you need. You're denied the things that you need. You might not be able to ask questions about where were you or what's happening, but you are interrogated. You don't get help and assistance. You don't get enough money to buy food. You don't get adequately clothed. You and the children are living in nigh dismal situation while he has money to go out with friends, to have dinners out with his friends and to do different things. He might go on holiday and leave you at home. I know one of the things that happens a lot is a business that is abroad in another country. In the countries where you're from, they have a business there. It means they have to travel quite a lot. It means that you and the children are without quite a lot of necessities while you're never seeing the returns from the business that is in another country. And so financial abuse happens when your money is not money, the discussions don't happen because he has absolute control. So there are many ways that the abuse, are you isolated? Are you not able to see family and friends without them? Are they telling people at church things about you that means that you're ostracized and isolated at church? Though people say hello, but nobody pulls you close and there's no friendships because he's managed to cut everybody off. Is he telling people things about you, spreading rumors about you? Is he threatening to share secrets that you share with him in what you thought was the confines and confidentiality of the relationship? Is he sharing those stories with other people or threatening to share them with other people? Is he threatening you with things that you share in confidence that he's going to tell other people? Is he threatening to take your children away from you and to call social services or to take your children and you're never seeing them again? What kind of threats is he making that is continually keeping you in a place that feeling like you don't have any control and you don't have any options? How has he taken your options away from you? What are the things that he's done to take your options away from you? And you feel like you're totally reliant, totally have no options. You're nervous and agitated. You're constantly distressed and sad. You're in a place of depression and anxiety because you never know what's going to come next. Do you feel like you're walking on eggshells? Like 1 minute there is nearly peace and joy in the home, and in an instant that can shift because you're walking on eggshells because the mood changes so quickly that you don't know what's happening. And you have to be on constant alert. So your nervous system is never relaxed. You're never in a relaxed, joyful place because you don't know when it will happen. Is he telling people that you're not a good wife, that you're not looking after him? Does he expect you to look after him even when you're ill? That you have to get up, you have to make dinner, you have to look after him, you have to look after the children, and he doesn't help. And when you're too ill to do it, does he tell people that you're not a good enough wife and you're not looking after him? Is this a constant thing that he does that? Does he tell stories about you that are untrue? Does he take you before the elders and shame you? Does he shame you in front of other people? Does he shame you at home in front of the children? Does he tell the children things about you that is shaming? Does he use the children against you to turn them against you? Do you feel like you're constantly desperate, constantly in need, constantly unsure of yourself? The things that he has done eroded your self-esteem and your confidence, and you feel like you're a shadow of the person that you were before. All of these things and plus more would mean that you're in an emotionally abusive relationship. Now, when we hear this, sometimes it might be really challenging to own, to accept, and to know what to do next. I'm going to put the details for Women's Aid in the show notes for this episode. And please reach out to them, reach out to us, and let us offer you support as you get to understand what is happening and so you can make a decision around what you do next. So all of what I've said and much more is involved in an abusive relationship. It can be physical. He might not hit her, but that doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make it not abuse. Forgiveness. So what does the Christian woman do in a situation like this? She forgives, but the insults doesn't stop. The coercive control doesn't stop. The demand for sex doesn't stop. Even when you're unwell, when you've just had a baby, when you're on your monthly cycle, that you're never able to say no to sex. And non-consensual sex is rape. You're never able to say no. The Bible is used as a weapon, and you're threatened with exposure because you've not said no? Is your trauma used against you? Because sometimes abusers will use your trauma against you. You were grown up without a father, and so that's why you are in this position, and you're blaming them because you are not used to having a man around. And that's why you're not respectful, and that's why you're not obedient and submissive and all the other words that they use. Do you never feel like you're able to make decisions for yourself or parent in a way that is aligned with your values? Do you feel like you're constantly unsure because your self-esteem has been taken and your confidence is gone because of the chipping away at you daily? So a Christian woman is sometimes in an abusive relationship is subjected to degradation over and over and over again. Should she just pray, forgive, and do it again the next day? Not that she shouldn't forgive, not that she shouldn't pray, but I'm sharing this to let those know who are skeptics and love a marriages more than they love people, to know that this is not a matter of just forgive and it disappears and he will change. Change takes time. Change takes awareness, self-awareness and acceptance. And then the work of change starts, which will take years. So when we're saying to people, forgive, we have to understand the context and what she's living with and how we're going to provide a supporting role in helping this woman walk her journey of forgiveness and healing so that she can be free. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Stories That Shape Us. I hope you'll join me on the next story.